Hey, this is Erich Hunter here, and I had a great question about pendulum healing today from a person in my Facebook group, my Pendulum Healing Facebook group. And I'm just going to read that question to you, and then I'm going to talk about my response to this. 'Cause I thought this is really important for people to hear about. So the question is, hey, Eric, you mentioned somewhere, and it was in my very first book, um, that you worked on an energetically dirty area for some time, um, of which all of your work was trashed after a rock concert came to town. So basically, I was doing healings on Ojai, California, the city I used to live in California. And what happened was I noticed there were a lot of homeless people and like a lot of low consciousness, like things going on, like with teenage gangs and all this kind of stuff and homeless and all this stuff. So I did pendulum healing on the neighborhood. And the shocking thing was after I did the healing, within like a matter of hours, even like, and then by the next day for sure, everything was completely turned around. Like all the homeless people like were friendlier. The hooligans like left the local park. It became like very like harmonious. Like it didn't like drive the homeless away, but they were more friendly and they were getting along with each other. It was really a very fascinating thing, and I was really impressed by it. But then what happened was Ojai has these concerts that come to town, and they had this rock concert come in. I'm not going to say the name of the group, but anyway, after that concert, like all the healing that I did was undone. So the homeless were fighting each other again. Those teenagers came back, and it was a very interesting coincidence. And I would do the healing work, and then another concert would come to town, and boom, it would get all undone. Anyway, so this is what this person is referring to. Okay, so the question is, may I ask how long did you work on this particular area and the frequency before your hard work started to manifest anything positive? And then this person says that they're trying to do something similar within a 100-meter radius of the house, since it's a decadent suburban area and most of my adjacent neighbors are apathetic to proper lawful hygiene and sanitation. But the pendulum healing seems to have an insignificant effect at this time. So far, I've been trying to raise the consciousness to the highest level, raise the vibrations, and instill respect for cleanliness and the environment. So that is a really interesting question. Like, can you use your pendulum to affect your neighbors in your neighborhood? And the answer is absolutely yes, you can. But the thing that has to be understood is that every situation is going to be unique. Some situations are going to be much easier to shift things around than other situations. And in certain situations, you may be playing the role, like I'll describe it like kind of like Mother Teresa. So let me go to that extreme example first. So the most extreme example is if you live in an area where the problems are so severe that your efforts are going to seem like they're not really doing anything, even though they are having effect. So think about the famous healer woman, Mother Teresa, who I believe went into the ghettos of Calcutta. And like from what I understand, this woman was facing impossible odds, trying to help the sick, the poor, the hungry with very limited resources. And like, did she turn the whole thing around? Did she stop the slums? Did she save everybody? The answer is absolutely no. But did she make an impact on individual people's lives? And the answer is absolutely yes. So you may live in a place that is the equivalent of that, where it's going to be almost impossible to affect a long-term shift by yourself using the pendulum. But you can raise the consciousness of your own home, of the people in your family, of your immediate neighbors, of acquaintances. You might even be able to do it for certain areas. But realize that in some circumstances, your work will constantly be undone. And why does this happen? Well, there can be geopathic stress going on. So there can be like underground, like energy currents, bad energy from the earth that can be affecting the inhabitants of an area, or lowering their consciousness and making bad things happen there, like can go down. Another thing is that the residents of a particular area may have a history of trauma. So in the past, they may have formerly been like slaves. Like in certain parts of the United States, there are areas where the people were formerly slaves. And unfortunately, a lot of these areas are very low vibration, very low consciousness. And it doesn't have to do with directly due to the individuals living there, but it's sort of like an inherited trauma that's been passed down. So in different parts of the world, there are going to be regions where there was a trauma that occurred in the past, and it can still be affecting the residents of the present. The other aspect of this is that there are vicious cycles created by low consciousness. So people start acting in a way that's low consciousness, anger, self-pity, guilt, whatever. These sort of lower than level 200 on Hawkins scale of consciousness, these sort of behaviors. And what happens is that they start to become reinforced. So you are living in a low conscious environment, you get depressed, angry, whatever, and then you start acting it out, and then that just adds to that. It's like adding fuel to the fire, and just things get worse and worse. So, you have one high consciousness individual, and you're living in a neighborhood full of gangs and homeless people and lots of crime and all sorts of other stuff going on. Yeah, you're having an effect, and you're going to affect, you can affect certain individuals, but there are going to be other individuals like who are victims of all this, and then they're going to lash out and then create more problems, and it's just going to be this self-sustaining cycle. So you have to realize that sometimes you're dealing with impossible odds. So in those cases, if you're in an environment where it's almost like, it's like really difficult, you have to realize, like, if you're going to do this, you may be almost like a martyr. You may be like a saint. You may be going into this environment doing your pendulum healing work, and you may not see the massive shift that you want to have happen, but realize that your healing efforts could be really impacting individuals' lives and maybe helping to shift the consciousness of these areas overall, because all healing has an effect. Whether or not you see it directly immediately is another question. So if you feel called to stay in the neighborhood like that, continue to do the healing work, and don't be disappointed if you don't see massive results like right away or even ever, but realize that it may be your calling to do this, just like the Mother Teresa figure that I talked about earlier. And look for the small miracles, look for the little shifts, look for the ways that you impact things. And also do real world stuff to supplement the pendulum. So do community cleanups, community organizing, become a politician and help your neighborhood. Do something like in the real world to organize, start a community garden, start a youth group, do something to help out if it's bothering you. Okay, so that's like the most extreme like case that you can deal with. One other thing, well, I'll go into some other things. So let's say you have like a less extreme situation. You can do a lot with the pendulum for doing healing on that. So one thing to do right away is, heal thyself first. So use your pendulum on yourself, your family members, your home. You're going to want to do emotional healing, and I have a free course on that that has the emotional healing protocol. You want to check that out if you haven't done it already. So you can do an emotional healing on yourself, your family. You can do an emotional healing on your house. You can do an emotional healing on your neighborhood collectively. You can also do it on your neighbors. And as long as you add only for the highest good of all concerned, then it's okay. You don't even don't ask permission, and you can do this all as a distance healing. Okay, so number one, emotional healing is important. Number two, you want to look into geopathic stress. And I have an entire course on how to heal geopathic stress. So you want to look into that and do that healing, because earth energies can drastically impact your health and also the health of homes around you. The original studies of geopathic stress, what they noted was that there were certain zones or regions where, there were sick houses. So this can be a neighborhood-wide thing, a neighborhood-wide phenomenon. So, you doing healing on your home and your neighborhood with the pendulum can really help to shift things with the geopathic stress. So that's another thing to consider. So emotional healing, geopathic stress. Another really important one are the earth energies of the earth beings, the earth spirits. So things like devas, nature spirits, the elf spirits, fairies. Now, some of you may be like, whoa, that's going a little too far. But if you're willing to go there, like I am, it's really, really important. And I've worked with people and I've done it myself. You can have massive shifts even in a wildly degraded environment. The nature spirits are still there and they're desperate to be helped and healed. So, for example, if you move into a house and trees were cut down, you know, if you haven't done some kind of healing work around that, the nature spirits are going to be upset. And likewise, even in the most, you know, intense inner city environment, there are some remnants of the nature spirits left. So you can foster them, heal them with the pendulum, do all kinds of work around that. And that's another thing. I have an entire course in that. I can't explain how to do it here, but it's called Nature Spirits with Pendulums. But basically, you want to be communicating with them, raising their consciousness, sending them healing energy, and doing real world things like, you know, making gardens, cleaning up natural areas. Like if there's a stream and you're in an inner city and there's a urban stream running through, clean it out, pull the tires out, get the waste out, join one of those groups that does that. You know, leave gifts to the nature spirits, you know, do little things. It's really simple. It's not hard, but it can have a big impact, especially around the home, communicating with them. One person I helped with that had a big shift after they did that, and their home became much more harmonious and a better place to live. All right, so you have emotional healing, you have geopathic stress, you have nature spirits. You can now just do regular pendulum commands too, like raising consciousness, sending love. You know, like if you know there's a particular area in your neighborhood, like there's a certain corner where gangbangers always hang out, or where a lot of crime happens, or a lot of car accidents, things like that. Just constantly be sending healing energy to that area, raise the consciousness, do emotional healing, and boom, that can shift things around a lot. I have done that successfully long-term in other areas where I've lived. And it's amazing what you can do. So like if there's a certain place you have to walk through every day and you know it's not safe, you know, raise the consciousness of that place. Send love and healing to everyone who goes there. Change the energy of that place to blue-green. Just follow the protocols from the books and the courses and stuff, just the basics, or make up your own commands related to that. I have another video called Making Your Own Commands. Watch that video right after this if you don't know how to do that. And that can have a massive impact. On a side note, you may also want to do some protection work for yourself. Like I have a whole course on how to protect yourself with a pendulum, how to make yourself invisible, how to protect yourself and objects, how to also, and like in real world protection, like from muggers and thieves and things like that, and also how to spiritually protect yourself from psychic attack. It's kind of a side note, but anyway, that's another thing you might want to do. So target certain areas in your neighborhood that you know are hot spots. Just target them with healing and just keep doing it every day. Boom, boom, boom. And if you keep targeting those hot spots, like that can kind of ease up tensions in the entire neighborhood. So that's taking a strategic approach. And if you're in a relatively good neighborhood that just has a few minor bad areas, doing that work can really have a big impact. Okay, so I'm trying to think anything else related to this. I mean, there's so much. I could just go on and on about this topic. So definitely put your questions and comments below if you have them, because there's probably something I haven't addressed here, and I can answer it below. So going back to the Ojai thing about Ojai, California, why was that happening there? Like, why wasn't my healing sticking? You know, at one level, you could be like, oh, that's a failure of the healing technique. It shows it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. But upon reflecting on it and thinking about it, Ojai, California is a place of healing. It has been a place of healing for a long time, and it still is. The land has incredibly healing energy there, and there are devas in the land that are healing devas. And that's why there are so many healing places there, so many healers, and why organizations like the Theosophical Society got themselves there, and many important spiritual things have happened in Ojai. And why traditionally the Native Americans were there too, because it was a very healing place. They would come in there to, you know, for the water and also for doing ceremonies and stuff. So anyway, what I realized is that while my efforts were quite noble, there was a greater healing force going on, which is the land of Ojai itself. So that particular piece of land was calling in people who needed healing, and it was also doing healing work on them. And it was sort of engineering that whole concert situation on purpose to draw these people in so that they would be exposed to the healing energies of Ojai. So in that particular case, there was a force that was greater that was working on it. But that's not true for every case. So for example, like there are certain areas of Los Angeles that are really, you know, challenging, very low consciousness, high crime. I don't want to name them. I don't want to call them out, but you know where they are if you live there. And what I noticed is that they are in a drainage basin. And so basically all of the energy from LA, that's because negative energy travels downstream. So all of the energy is just getting dumped into this one area. And unfortunately, the people who are living there are constantly getting bombarded by all of the harmful energy from the rest of the city. So in that case, if you are going to be like, that is one of those situations where it's going to be almost an impossible situation to affect long-term change. So if you're in there and you're doing healing work, realize you are sort of a saint or a martyr. It's like, that's a long-term project that probably will take the rest of your life. And you got to focus on the small victories, and just heal your own space and be trying to help as many people as you can. But don't expect the ego, shouldn't expect the big, wow, everything shifted. But that's an extreme case. So like, just wanted to point out that every case is unique. Every case is different. You never know what effect you're going to have. So it's always worth trying to shift the energy of your neighborhood. So I hope this video was helpful for you and that you got some insights. And yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.